goes. Good morning, welcome to a morning outlook after Friday's non-farm payrolls. What have we got in store then? Well, non-farm payrolls did obviously, I say obviously, but they did hit the markets a little bit, at least for a while, not massively. Let's have a look at what we've got in store today in terms of news first. Let's have a look at the calendar. So the risk sentiment, I actually put this on Friday, but I've just sort of left it for the whole week. And if you can, there's a whole lot of yellow. But as usual, following non-farm payrolls, the first week after, it rarely has anything massively significant, and there may be another central bank sometimes, but we have got some banking speakers. We've got the ECB, the 3:45. We've got ECB President Lagarde speaking this afternoon, due to testify at a virtual hearing before the European Parliamentary Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee. Now that could move the markets. Things are changing and moving on a little bit, as we saw from her speech after the ECB decision last week, which only had 3 words changed in it, but it all changed from that point onwards. Well, after when she started speaking, which it'll be an interesting one. So we could see some volatility coming at 3:45. Aside of that, that's it for today. But this week we have the Bank of Canada's governor speaking. We've got Bank of England governor speaking, Reserve Bank of Australia governor speaking. So they're all out there somewhere. And I'm sure the FOMC member Mester speaking. There's plenty to pick from here, but in general, news-wise, inflation later in the week, there on Thursday for the US, which will be key in terms of seeing how things are progressing. It takes a long time for anything to do with interest rates, etc., to filter through to CPI generally. Yeah, that's what we got this week coming up. Okay, let's move back then to have a look at the Forex markets first, starting off with the euro dollar. Well, the euro on Friday actually held up pretty well, all things taken into account. It has made this double high. It's coming back to this weekly pattern here. It's a bit of a mess really, because, well, it'll be interesting to see if it just carries on the downward projection. But it could have equally finished off its 5th wave that I was looking for in the wave sort of structure. This is where it starts getting a bit difficult now, in terms of if it gets back above the 200, but then it's more into, if this was an impulse wave, it's into the corrective wave sitting there. So really it's just that line in the sand there, but it's very finely balanced really between the previous highs, this high, as to whether we're changing direction. Okay, for more than a few days. Looking at the coming down to the 4 hourlies, lower high, almost just needs to break that 1412 area, and it's confirmed a lower high, and that, well, points us towards the weekly pivot as a target at 1357. So there are some potential targets sitting below here if it starts breaking down. Currently sitting into a 60-minute 50, bit of support there. Pivots are relatively pinched. It was a really tight old day on Friday, taking into account we saw non-farms coming out, and there was a bit of a surprise in there, high inflation in terms of earnings, and the job numbers created were bigger than expected. So a bit of a surprise, not really a massive move, and it caught the bounce later in the afternoon, and closed more positively. But at this stage, well, selling off after the Monday, is it going to find support with this 50 this morning? We'll see. A break above the daily pivot for me then becomes more bullish. At the moment it's in bearish territory in the short term at least. So that's where I am with the euro. The pound, it's done a bit of a swing sort of movement here. Bearish candle coming in on Friday. This is a bit of a mixed one. When you start going through, filtering through, it put a lower high in on Thursday, Friday. Was confirmed. Bouncing, it's just almost into its weekly pivot here and catching the bounce at this stage. So it's back into the monthly pivot actually, but within a hair's breadth of the weekly there. So we'll just see if this bounces a little bit more. It's under its daily pivot at the moment, still erring towards the bearish side with the lower highs, as I said, coming through there. A break back above, well, really between a rock and a hard place here at the moment, and the decision for me is whether it breaks the weekly pivot to the downside or breaks the daily there. I mean, it may just break the daily, run into a key moving average, then roll. So got to be a bit careful here at this stage. Can't see too much. Well, at the moment what I'm seeing is the euro selling, and then I'm seeing a lot of markets pushing up. Okay. Dollar yen, let's come out a bit here. This is continuing to show some weakness. It did on Friday. Just consolidating where it sits at the moment on the 4-hourly, but it's got those high lows coming through there basically, and looking a bit weak. It has got a weekly pivot sitting below, and the daily pivot, there's a weekly pivot here, daily pivot sitting below, which could be a draw if we see any more strengthening of the yen, where there's some targets for them this morning, maybe later this afternoon even, but there's some targets for them. Any sort of bounce off here really would give me a potential upside, so I'm looking at that carefully. Commodity currency is doing well this morning. We've got this same sort of swing sort of position, looking with these candles here, but bouncing. This is very similar to the pound in a sense. We're getting a sort of a bit of a bounce coming through from here, and sitting bang into its weekly pivot. It's just gone through fractionally, but it's bounced off the highs of that. It's through its daily pivot at the moment, and if anything, with the higher lows coming through here on the 60-minute time frame, it looks erring towards the bullish side. Really choppy market for the Aussie dollar last week, and it's one of those that could become more difficult as we go forward for a while. There's no real clarity. However, maybe at some point here we'll get something more. Going back to the 4-hourly to show the choppiness for quite long periods. Yes, it did eventually get sold off there. It's early hours on Friday, and just sort of continued. But we'll see how it develops here. But it's again, as I said, it's a difficult one to read how this is going at the moment. Canadian dollar, well, again, we're seeing a bit of strength coming into commodity currency. Canadian dollar, I was looking last week at the break of the highs, become bullish for the US dollar against the CAD. It's been putting higher lows in on the lower time frames. We've seen these coming through here last week, with a lot of support sitting there into the weekly pivot, and that was it. It pretty much stayed in a very tight range until Friday, and then it sort of pitched out of that, softened up. At the moment, the question is it going to roll back over? It's again one of those that sort of sitting either or, and that's the way the market's shaping up this morning. Just need a bit more of a directional clue to where things are going. Point of least resistance may be to the upside still here. Right, let's have a look at commodities. So commodity market, in terms of the commodity market, gold even, well, it's still sort of running through. We're getting this spiky price action last week on the 4 hours. Just come back to the dailies here first, but sort of look at the picture, and generally bigger picture, it's still got that hint towards the upside. It came in the week before close to taking, well, it did take the previous low out, but didn't really confirm a lower high or anything amongst all of that, and we sort of just an expanding wedge effectively. What we're seeing there, it's pushing out this way and this way in the shorter term frame. At the moment, it's erring, as I said, with these higher lows coming through on this sort of 4-hourly time frame, higher highs. It's erring towards that upside, but we do have a weekly pivot below, which can be quite an attraction for it. So just watching carefully. But it's, you see the news coming out and what was happening either side of the news. It was just drifting up each time the news came out. It hit it badly and then off it went again. So it seems to be wanting to, and well, I say it hit it badly. It recovered on both occasions, which suggests some sort of strength, and money seeing these as opportunities as opposed to anything else. Right, oil. So oil at the moment, let's go out to dailies here. We saw last week, we saw it running into $93 there, into its monthly R1 area. So there's the roof for now. Coming down the time frames. Again, looking at this, thinking that'd be quite a nice buy off the the weekly pivot there. If it was to come back to that sort of 90-50 area, see if it could find some support around there, could be a decent buy off there. One thing you got to watch out for on oil, if you look over, if you see these lines here, they represent a week, so there's a weekly pivot. And as you look at the weekly pivot, you see how long it really chopped within these. So for me, it's really a bit of a day trade. I mean, if you'd been in a position from a way back, yep, you could be holding that. But at the moment, it's more like a day trading market than anything else, or unless you're quite happy sitting in a swing doing nothing for good parts of the time in terms of relative results. So again, just waiting patiently now for this afternoon's movement. Personally, if it gets back to that pivot, then I'm looking on the longer side. I'm looking for reversals to get into that long side. Okay, looking at other markets then. Let's just switch charting packages for this, and we'll look at I'm going to look at the crypto. So as we're on currencies first, let's have a look at the crypto first. What's happened over the weekend? Friday saw a decent shove up. It broke some trend lines here, pushed on through the session, running much more positive here. It has made some foundations. I mentioned it, I don't know if on Friday morning, but certainly in our trading room I was mentioning it, that the fact that it's put a higher low in here, it's pushed up, looking like it could be on a bit of a turn on Bitcoin. Seeing the same on Ethereum here, some decent positivity coming through here, and we're just sort of seeing that sort of more significant movements here. Retracements may be the opportunity to buy at the moment on some of these markets with the higher lows already put through. Again, Ripple's well up this morning, weekend's been up, so it's, as I say, could be on the turn at these points here. Some of the other markets a bit less so in terms of their movement, but relatively they're all doing we're seeing that same sort of pattern running through there, breaking through previous trend lines. So last couple of days here, a few days, as I say, the weekend's been good to it really. Moving into the indices, we'll look at the CSI. It's just opened after a week's holiday there, and well, it's pretty flat last night, so no significant movement there. Still bearish looking in general, but it's ended up on a flat day. At the moment, Nikkei 225. Saying at the moment, it's just. Sorry, I'm just checking something there. Yeah, it's closed. I was just checking it's closed. So Nikkei 225, slight down day there, but it just consolidating where it's sitting. I'm still quite bearish on these at the moment. Looking across at the Nifty 50, as that's still running and giving us a good part of its session at the moment. Again, looking sort of carried on. It ran into its 4 daily 21 there, actually daily 21 I've got on at the moment, and has rolled back from that. So looking at the equity market, still looking a bit soft. That are open, been running live. Changing to European markets, let's have a look. DAX this morning so far just pitching up a little bit here, but the general picture is quite negative. Looking soft here. The CAC as well, same sort of weakness. It just sort of triggered some further weakness to me last week. Whether or not we see a sort of a major bounce this morning, or I say major bounce, but a significant bounce, we'll have to see. The FTSE just literally opened positively. FTSE sits so close to prior high, its main highs here. You do wonder whether I sort of sit there and look at a pattern like this and think, well, at some point it can hold up here. At some point it may break through and it will take out stops that are sitting above there, no doubt, and get a bit of a shuffle. Whether that we've seen the move now is another matter, but it's certainly looking quite bullish there. US markets, futures on the US markets, a bit negative on the S&Ps at the moment, just not really knowing which way to go at this stage. Non-farm payrolls, inflation figures affecting the equity markets, or certainly the US equity markets. Generally, it looks like there's going to be more interest rate increases. Of course, that hits the commodity equity markets. Beg pardon, and we're seeing a bit of a possible consequence of that, as it's sort of reflecting that the jobs report was stronger than a lot of people expected. Nasdaq, bit of a bounce here this morning, but yeah, early days for these markets. They've all sort of put in something that looks to me quite bearish there over the last couple of days of last week. So looking softer. Okay, that's pretty much it from me. So bit of a mixed bag. Some of the currencies we're going to just have to sit and wait a little bit, wait for direction. Equity markets still look a bit soft to me. Commodities, well, again, bit of patience, but looking a little bit more positive. It all suggests a bit of dollar softness. We've certainly seen, I had a look at the euro earlier, certainly seen euro weakness across its peers at the moment, and commodity currencies doing pretty well. Have a great day. I'll catch you in the morning. Bye for now.